to move on to the panel discussion, which is titled as COVID-19, Coping with COVID-19, Impact on Container Trade and Future Outlook. So we have expert speakers with the different backgrounds joining us in this panel, who will share more insights into the topic, into whatever we have been discussing all these years. So let me have the pleasure of inviting all these panelists. Firstly, Captain Deepak Tiwari, Managing Director of MSC Agency and also the Chairman of Container Shipping Lines Association. Welcome back, Captain.
Thank you.
Then it is my pleasure to invite Captain Sandeep Mehta, President, Business Development, Adani Ports and SEZ Limited. Welcome.
Morning.
Welcome, Captain. Morning. Then let me invite Mr. Jishan R. Mukhi, Director, Customer Experience, South Asia, AP Moller and Maersk.
Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you, Jishan, for being on board. We also have Mr. P. Kalyanarama, PMD Container Corporation, joining this panel, but the office has 5 more minutes to join. So eventually he would be joining. But anyway, let me get on with the session. I'm not making any elaborate introductions because I think for all the participants, all of you are well-known figures in the industry. Is it okay with all of you? Except Jishan is coming for the first time on my panel. So Jishan is the Director Customer Experience South Asia at Maersk. He joined the Maersk Group in 2004 and since then has taken up different roles in India, Singapore and Sri Lanka. And he was also at Maldives holding the office as MD for Maersk Lanka Private Limited. And as I said, Captain Sandeep Mehta and Captain Deepak Tiwari are veterans in this industry. So, gentlemen, we have seen the presentation on the container trade, on the throughput numbers, and also Captain Tiwari mentioned some of the positive aspects of the period that happened and also the challenges that we are seeing. So let me begin with the question to you. This is an unprecedented situation that we have seen, and last 7 months, all of you have dealt with several challenges. So I'm not getting into what has happened, how we handled, because every month it was a learning experience. We were crossing one challenge after another. So I would like to focus more on what are the current challenges that we have on hand. So I would like to hear from Captain Deepak Tiwari. There is a reverse trend which we have seen is more of exports going up and then more of imports coming down. It has posed 2 challenges. One, the shortage of equipment, the pressure on equipment is hugely hitting, which earlier also we were facing this kind of problem through empty repositioning and all that. But what is the current scenario because of this imbalance in this, and then we'll move on to what are the issues that it has thrown up. Sir, you are on mute.
Sorry. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Mr. Ramprasad, and good morning once again to all ladies and gentlemen who are attending this conference. Yes, times have changed. Well, our exports have gone up significantly. As I mentioned, it's gone up by 24% in the last 3 months compared to 2019. And the imports have gone down by 28% in the last 3 months, July, August, September, vis-a-vis 2019. Now, this poses a different type of challenge, which means that earlier we were equipment surplus. Normally, we were equipment surplus in India as shipping lines. Today, we are equipment negative, and that is across the board, whether it is 20s, whether it is 40s, whether it is reefers, whatever you talk about equipments are short in India. Now, this poses a different type of challenge whereby shipping lines now have to redesign their supply chains of MT equipment into India. And this could be from nearby areas which are surplus in equipment, or it could be even as far as the United States and Europe. And so the lead time to bring equipment has increased and has increased exponentially, which means that the Indian exporter has already started feeling the crunch for equipment when they need it. Because the way the trade worked was, okay, I produce my goods, right? It's ready for exports. I get my customs permissions and documents filed, and shipping line, give me the equipment. Today, the case is different. You have to plan your production, your exports in a manner whereby you can give the shipping lines a bit of a lead time and for giving you the MT equipment that is required in the condition that you require it. And this is further aggravated in the inland destinations, where MT equipment has to be moved from the ports at a substantial cost to various ICDs and inland destinations, from where the MTs can be picked up from that location and then taken by the exporters for their packing and re-export. So this is something that is going to face the export community at least for another quarter till the imports start coming into India.
Okay, Captain. I would like to know from Captain Sandeep Mehta how he is dealing with at the terminals, the terminal perspective, Captain Mehta.
Thank you, Ram Prasad, and good morning to everybody. I can see there are 170 participants, and thank you for organizing this. This is a great forum. I think brings everybody together, and most importantly, this is the best way to share information amongst the fraternity. So the lockdown, we all know, was the most strict I think has happened anywhere in the world. It was sudden. It was erratic because different states applied different norms, and that totally changed the way the supply chain was working. And ports are integral. Right now, shipping line, ports, inland facilities are all, this whole thing is about continuity, is about visibility, is about getting a comprehensive understanding of how the shipments will move, and that got totally disrupted. There must be multiple reasons for which the blank falls happened, but let me before that come to the issue of how the ports actually cope with it. A lot of move by road, and they are the truck drivers who are involved in doing this very, very important activity, they kind of felt frightened. They did not have enough information, and they left their jobs and went back to their hometowns. And that caused a major disruption in road transportation, road logistics. I am quite pleased to say that the railways did an excellent job. All the container train operators, private container train operators, Concorde, they all did an excellent job, and they were able to, at least fill the gap. So major challenges took place at least at all our ports, and our teams, took decisions to ensure that the ports were functioning. They are all part of the essential services. So thank God for that. That at least we were able to offer continuity. We were able to offer reliability. Of course, because of blank calls, they brought in their own challenges of the cargoes lying in the terminal for longer periods, had to be multiple handled and things like that. But that besides the point. I think everybody rose to the challenge, and it was one of the most collaborative ways in which shipping took place. And that continues to be the case even now. So safety was a very key issue for all our people, and the kind of social distancing requirements, the whole issue of ensuring safety of everybody. I think that was the major concern for us and continues to be so. And our people have risen to that occasion. Costs went up. Multiple handling costs went up drastically. The throughput went down. The blank sailings caused a lot of disruption, and about 70 to 80% of our costs are fixed. So there was multiple challenges to be handled to keep people safe, to keep people, continuously motivated, and ensuring that the COVID did not spread. So that is how I think I would like to at least start with and keep everybody updated on that from the ports aspect of it. Thank you. Ram Prasad, I can't hear you.
So this is one challenge. Yeah. We are now just joined by Mr. V. Kalyanarama, Chairman and Managing Director of Concor. Welcome, sir. Welcome to the forum.
Thank you. Thank you. Good morning to all of you. And thank you, Ram Prasad.
Yeah. So we were just discussing about the how the COVID impact has created some of the new challenges. Apart from the volumes going down, it has created the imbalance between exports and imports, and how lines and terminals are dealing with it. So we would like to understand from your perspective, from the rail transportation and also at Concor ICDs, how is the equipment imbalance position, and what are the pressures that you are facing, and how are you dealing with it?
Yeah, so of course, COVID definitely has brought in a lot of disruption in many ways, any walks of our life. More so in the personal life. I think most of us have become more active and more health conscious, fitness freaks, trying to reduce weight. It's good. One way I see COVID as a positive sign for the personal health. But yeah, business has got affected badly. In the first few months, it was very bad when the first lockdown and second lockdown. There was so much of uncertainty in the air and how things will happen. But one good thing what happened is that Indian Railways has really given a good fillip to the business by announcing free movement of empties and free movement of empty wagons during that period. And of course, Concor as a leader in this transportation service by rail mode, we immediately acted on that. And from the day the railway announced a free service, we implemented that from the same midnight. And it in fact helped many people. A lot of equipment imbalance got covered in that. But that equipment imbalance, I think, is still there. Maybe Captain Tiwari and Captain Mehta are better people to talk about that. It's still going on. You see, what happened, the manufacturing sector has not yet started. So the imports are very low, but the exports, being a country of primary product export, we are able to export, and export volumes picked up. That created a lot of empty imbalance. A lot of empty equipment is coming into the ports. And even though empty movement is not really a lucrative business for any CTO, But to cater to the demand and the needs of the trade, we are continuously moving empties back into the hinterland. And that's helping. Otherwise, at the ICDs, when we see ultimately the equipment is more or less balanced. I think it's a combined effort, not only by the importers, exporters, and the shipping lines played a key role in that, bringing in the empty equipment from overseas and trying to help the Indian exporters. That's a great job done by the liners. And the transporters, mainly the rail transport, as just now Captain Mehta was talking about it. Yes, the gap created by the problems on the road sector because of non-availability of drivers and the trailers and the movement problems, that has been filled up very well by the rail transporters, because the capacity additions have been done in the last year. There was demand pickup was happening in the last year before the COVID, and in fact every one of us are thinking that this year will be very good for the import-export business and as well as for the rail transport. So the good capacities have been built up by even the private operators along with Concor. So the rake availability was not a problem. And luckily the railways, they were able to operate these trains. One, because they stopped the coaching services. So availability of the running staff was very good. Availability of path is very good. The network congestion has gone away because only a few coaching trains. You see, in a day, normally, including suburban services on Indian Railways, around 11,000 services happen every day. And as on date, I think it's only 400 services, and now they are adding some more. So that's really reduced the pressure on the network. That helped in the movement, the freight movement. So the general freight on the Indian Railways also picked up very well during the month of September and in the second quarter. For container business, as far as rail transport is concerned, I can say these are some of the best days where the transit times really have come down. In Interland from TK to JNPT, the transit time has come into a range of around 45 hours, which used to be around 70 hours. So even with less equipment, the balancing became more easier for the liners. And also it became much easier for the transporters like Concor and other CTOs to balance the equipment and meet the needs of the trade. So that, even though there was some stress, but more or less the demand was met. Exporters were able to get their boxes. Of course, I don't want to comment on the freight rates. That let Captain Tiwari speak about it, how much profit he made and how much good rates he could get. And because always he complains that shipping is always in bad shape, but I think definitely must have laughed to the bank this time on the jovial side. But yes, that's his topic. But more or less, exporters were given the boxes and they were able to export their product. So here I would like to add, Ramprasad, wherever there was real problem with the boxes, Concor, we stepped in. We said we can give our boxes to meet the demand and only for the point-to-point service. Of course, see, we never wanted to become a NVOCC or a shipping liner because we don't want to create a conflicting atmosphere where we are serving all the liners and we become a liner, then we don't want to get into that space. But to meet to fill up the gap, we started and we in fact told the exporters that for Iran, for Bangladesh, for Sri Lanka and Nepal, the immediate neighboring countries, and if required for Middle East, we can provide our boxes. Because these are point-to-point service. We don't want to get into any of the other services because we are not in that business. So there is no way that our boxes will start moving like a liner box, go into the circuit and will come back later. So we can only operate a point-to-point service. just a beginning made, because there is still the problem of boxes in India. As I said, for Iran particularly, the rice exporters are facing problem. And the forecast is that this year the rice exports will be very good because there is a shortage of rice, and I think the rice production is less in Thailand and the southeastern countries. And India, luckily, our rice production is good, so we got rice to export. So maybe this time the rice exports will be good. Even the tea exporters are facing shortage of boxes as on date in the Assam and the eastern areas. So they are looking for boxes. Of course, there we are not able to really help the tea exporters because the 40 feet is not in our equipment. We only have 20 feet with us in our, which we move in domestic circuit, which we are taking out and trying to help the exporters. Here, I would like to add that the domestic, in fact, the movement, as Captain Mehta mentioned, because of the disruption on the road services, the demand on rail is very high. And we were moving more boxes compared to last year during this time on the domestic side. So the boxes are not freely available for us also. Our boxes, we are having around a fleet of 35,000 TEUs today. But those things, so we are trying to bring out something from that and try to help the exporters. But I think the liners definitely should take more proactive role in bringing 40 feet, 20 feet, because tea and rice, they are still having the equipment problem for their exports. And the handicrafts in Moradabad and other areas, they're continuously writing letters to us, to Ministry of Commerce for the equipment. So maybe here the liners can definitely help these people and bringing the boxes and trying to send them. This is regarding the equipment and the imbalance. And but as I said, I want to just say that more or less the exporters' needs were met. I would like to add one or 2 points, which actually, in my view, what the COVID has brought changes on the trade and the operations in general. See, now the whole thing, as all of us know, is to stop the spread of virus. So more and more contactless business, automated, digitized business, which is the need of the hour. So we have to, already these practices, the platforms are available with a lot of us. One of the liners, they got the platforms where the bookings can be done online, and Customs has got the ICE gate ready. Concur, we had already developed where all the filing, e-filing can be done. So customer need not step out of their office. So the physical contact we can reduce, but they are not very popular. Now this is the time where we must make them popular. More and more of digital transactions should take place. So in that endeavor, we are further adding the digitization thing to Concur. So for the general interest of all the stakeholders, I would just to add what we are trying to add on is, along with the e-filing, where all the papers can be filed with us through the net, we are now trying to bring in a complete coverage of the operations of our ICD through some AI-based system, so that customer even need not attend for cargo loading, unloading, and any other operation, customs examination. We would like to provide a complete online visual experience to our customers. This we will be able to start at one of our major depot at TKD maybe in 2-3 months time. We are almost ready with our the plan, and the drawing board work is completed. So it's only a question of implementation of it. So that will give the customer a complete digital experience. He can sit in his office and he can visualize what is happening, how is his cargo, how is getting stored in warehouse, how it is getting examined, how it is moving out. And the cargo will be counted, not even a single piece will be missing. So a complete counter for the cargo we can provide. So this we are bringing in, so that the physical contact among people, so it will not reduce any job. It will be, everything will be done. But one need not come and witness here the stuffing of the cargo, de-stuffing of the cargo, or all other things. They are online. They are provided. A visual experience will be provided to the customer. So I think this is more important. The digitization and automation and providing online experience and making the things to happen with more and more contactless, so that because this COVID is going to stay with us for some time, as far as the reports and the medical bulletins, what we are seeing and hearing and reading. So we have to take care of this. So this is the operational challenge and the solution which we are working out in Concor. So at TKD will start in 3 months, and we want to come up with this solution entire across Concor depots, maybe in a span of 1 year time. So this is how we are addressing the present scenario.
Thank you very much, Mr. Kalyana Rama, for those valuable insights, and also a lot of positive vibes that you have thrown at us. How things are. We'll come back to you. Please stay for a while. One announcement to all the participants is please start posting your questions in the Q&A box, so that I would prefer to take more of your questions rather than me asking the panelists. So you can pose specific questions in the Q&A session. So let me come back to Jishan. Jishan, you have heard what Captain Tiwari and Sandeep Mehta and others have said. So we are talking about some recovery happening in spite of the challenges that you have. What is the Merck's experience about the rebound in trade? What is your view?
Firstly, thanks a lot, Ram Prasad, for having me here and for the great introduction. I'd also like to, I'm also very excited to be part of such an esteemed panel today. And good morning to all who are viewing this live. So in terms of what Captain Tiwari and Captain Sandeep Mehta already mentioned, right? And our experience is pretty much in line with the same. We have definitely seen a rebound, significant rebound in Q3, calendar year Q3 this year, especially on the exports, with a significant surge coming in mainly from North America and North Europe, as some of these economies have opened up after the lockdowns, and as a result of that, there has been some inventory replenishment that has happened in these markets. So that definitely has seen a lot of pressure. What we have also experienced is, a lot of this has come in without a lot of warning. So it has been, in that sense, sudden, both for shipping lines, for exporters, and us being a network business as a shipping line. It is often, takes 4 to 6 weeks before we are able to sort of adjust demand, etc. And that has also led to some of the impact of what you're seeing on the equipment, on space, etc. Because when we were in Q2, it was extremely difficult to predict such a sharp rebound, especially in the period from July to September. So in that sense, we have seen demand now coming back, mainly on the exports, like was also mentioned by a lot of the other panelists. The import demand, like you also mentioned in your statistics, is still lower than last year into the subcontinent, and that is also a result of a lot of manufacturing still not being fully on, and the consumer product demand still not being back to the levels. Traditionally, this is our peak into India, mainly due to the Diwali inbound rush, and we've seen much subdued volumes over there, and we can see that consumer buying is subdued, and that's also reflected in a lot of the economic data that all of us are seeing on a day-to-day basis. The road ahead is still a bit difficult to predict because the scenario has been quite fluid. We've seen instances of rebound in COVID cases in many countries, and there are also there's always a looming threat that there might be some further lockdowns in different countries. That makes it difficult for us to sort of predict one way or the other exactly. Broader trend is that demand will continue to rise, like you've also shown in the presentation and the statistics just before this. But we have to be watchful for all the micro trends, especially the lockdowns in different countries. Changes in demand from consumers. There are there's been huge tactical shifts in buying patterns, or on certain commodities are in high demand, especially on the food category, and you can see that very much evident in the exports data as well. So all this has an impact, and we'll have to be watchful to see how this develops. However, on a very broad level, we can say that yes, there has been a significant demand bounce back, globally, also in the subcontinent.
Thank you, Jishan. I will come back to you. My next question is to Captain Deepak Tiwari. Sir, you have a lot of questions coming in. One as a follow-up question for our good friend Alu Alia. So if import doesn't improve in the next few quarters, what are the options CSLA has to improve the container availability for the exporters?
Yeah, okay. Now, you see, if we see that this trend is going to continue for, say, next 2 quarters or so, the shipping lines have already started their plans. They've already started loading empties from surplus areas into India. And their planning is such that they're starting to, create a chain of transportation for empties into India. It is costly, I have to admit, because we used to take empties out, but now bringing empties in is costly. The handling at the ports, put loading, unloading, and then also moving them into the hinterland, the transportation, railways, and handling is also a cost factor. There's an additional issue is that a lot of these empties may not come in the condition that is required by the particular exporter, say, for instance, food grade, say for rice or for clean containers that are required for other commodities. So then the cleaning and repair of those containers also takes time. So the lead time has really lengthened. And it's always good if there is a very close communication between the exporters and the shipping lines. That communication can tell the shipping lines that, okay, these are the slightly short-term, medium-term plans of the exporter for his export. This is the kind of quantity that he will require for the type of equipment. And if that planning can take place, that gives the shipping lines more time, and they can actually arrange for the empties. Another thing is that how the trend of imports will take place. We were expecting that by October, the imports would start creeping up and start increasing. That has not happened to the extent that the exports have increased. So under those circumstances, we hope that this doesn't go on for a long period of time. We hope that the imports will increase, that maybe if not by October, then by December at least, we should see a rise in imports. But to bring the import level to the export level, I'm not very sure that's going to happen very, very soon. The exports are going to continue because the type of exports that India is doing at this point of time are such that the demand in Europe, in US and Mediterranean, other countries, even to China for that matter, our exports have actually increased. and Southeast Asia. So that is something that we did not see last year. We did not see in the beginning of this year, which we are seeing now. And it's a good sign for India in the overall perspective of the economy.
Thank you very much, Captain. As you rightly said, even Government of India also has been trying to promote more exports from India. That's a good sign. Maybe for the short while we need to cope up with, but ultimately, when exports grow, the true spirit of Atmanirbhar Bharat would come true. My next question is to Captain Sandeep Mehta. Due to pandemic, we have seen blank sailings and some cancellations, and also some changes in vessel schedules. Even now, the carriers are trying to optimize their services, and then there are changes in schedules. So, as a terminal, how are you coping up with these issues?
Thanks, Ramprasad. How I read it is that the structural changes are likely to happen. The consumption in India has yet to pick up, so imports will be subdued because just the confidence of the consumer has yet to come back. So you will face this imbalance. Now, India, I'm not saying is going to replace China, but there is going to be a fundamental change over the next 5 years in which India will have to be seen as a very reliable service provider, producer of goods of good quality, and that process has started already, like you mentioned, through Atmanirbhar Bharat. So you will see that it will require some sort of consistency in the way the ship schedules are, the way the ports are performing, and the way we all interact. I think this is the larger issue that needs to be tackled, and it's part of that Vision 2030, and of which many of you all and the panelists are members. So I do believe that the ports will definitely rise to the occasion. There is enough capacity available. The southern ports have suffered more than the northwestern ports because primarily they are automotive based and agri based, so they will pick up. Our ports have, and I do believe we will be back to last year's numbers when we finish this year. So till the end of December and definitely till March, we should see a lot of consistency come back. Lesser blank sailings, but also the way the long supply chains have gone now forever. So having larger, bigger ships doing bigger hauls, I personally believe will need some sort of structural modification. And you will see short sea trades evolve much more, nearby countries, multiple countries doing the supplies, because now nobody can depend upon only one country doing your whole supply of key components coming to you. I have seen people air freighting cargo, because they had non-availability of sailing or non-reliability, and big, huge factories, likely to close down elsewhere in the world. And that requires India to perform very well, consistently, reliably, and that needs, schedule reliability, no blank sailings. We are not China where we are forcing that, you cannot have a blank sailing. Of course, shipping lines, I don't grudge them. They have to have their bottom lines. But if they will perform consistently and offer consistent, reliable liner services, these are liner services, they're scheduled services, they will reap the benefits, and India will be better positioned in this structural shift of providing, the alternate to, manufacturing as a country. I think there are multiple answers in this. And of course, our ports are geared up now. Ports are pretty well organized. Systems work. Digitalization has happened. It's irreversible now. Customs has done very well, exceptionally well. They have, really worked well with the industry. They have, in fact, pleasantly surprised the way in which they have been forthcoming in ensuring that, people are safe and, all the transactions can happen contactless, paperless, anonymous. And that's the way we are going. So I'm very confident and I'm very cautiously optimistic that in the next 2 quarters, you will see that we will have a semblance of order. Of course, we have to protect the capability and the reliability of India as a country which provides consistent services.
Thank you, Captain. We have some more questions on containers, but I will come back and pick up them up. I would like to ask Mr. Kalyanarama, sir, you mentioned about the domestic cargo shifting to rail. It has been a long-term wish that we should shift the traffic from road to rail. So this disruption has done anything good to the model shift? Do you think it will sustain and happen that the cargo will move on from road to rail?
No, see, this shift, now what happened, we can't construe it as a model shift. This is because the road service is affected, the drivers are not available, the road is, in fact, is suffering. So, but we must keep in mind one thing, the drivers available, the equipment is idling, and so the marginal cost will come into play. It will be a big competition for rail then. As on date, the cargo is coming onto rail because it has to have transportation. So there's the other mode is not available. But the discussions what today we are having, and railways also very actively considering, I am having discussion with my colleagues on railways, is how best we can maintain this transit guarantees and the transit times. So how much it is possible. So in fact, in one of the recent conferences, Chairman Railway Board mentioned that Railway has put in a lot of efforts in improving the infrastructural things and also to reduce the bottlenecks and the infrastructure constraints on railways. So that will definitely help in the improvement and the reduction in the congestion on the Indian Railways network. That may help in bringing in some model shift. Along with that, the DFC coming up in next another maybe 5-6 months from Kurja to Palanpur. So that is one of the very congested section as far as Indian Railways is concerned. So if it gets eased up, maybe the movement may take a little faster. So these positive things may bring in modal shift. But the present situation, I don't see that as a modal shift. It is more of it's a situational requirement which is happening.
Thank you, sir. The question to Captain Deepak Tiwari. This is a very specific operational question. When a vessel skips a port call and the boxes end up attracting storage charges, we end up in a situation where line says they can't help, vessel operators say it's beyond their control, terminals say how they are responsible for this, they are charging as per the tariff. Finally, shipper says I had get it in on time. So where is my mistake ending a stalemate situation? What could be the solution? Captain Amarendra Mishra. This can be answered by you as well as by others, other line and terminal.
Okay, very good question. May I first address the issue. Blank sailings are not going to take place anymore. We are not a nation under lockdown, right? And I hope to God we will not be a nation under lockdown, because now we are talking about unlocking. And we've been talking about unlocking for the last 3 to 4 months. So when this unlocking is taking place, we're getting back to normal. There is no question of blank sailings. Let me assure everybody, all the exporters, that as on today, there are no blank sailings. All sailings, as far as India is concerned, have been restored. I saw a question in the Q&A portion of this conference when somebody says that shipping lines will take their ships to the Pacific. Let me assure you, none of the services, none of the ships that are currently plying on the Indian services are going to go to the Pacific. It's a different trade. different size of vessel, different demand. And let me tell you, there's enough tonnage on the Pacific. The tonnage the blank sailings may have taken place trans-Pacific, mainly because of the China holidays. Those holidays are going to get over. And so now the question doesn't arise of any blank sailings. China is up and running. US is up and running. India is getting up and running now. And so blank sailings are out. Theoretically, my take on the question is that if the exporter has not done anything wrong, he has gated in his cargo in time, a ship has been blanked out, I think it's a matter that needs to be resolved between the shipping line and the exporter. And it can be easily resolved because after all, it's not the exporter's fault. That is how I understood the question. You're mute, Mr. Ramprasad.
Captain Sandeep, do you see any kind of a similar situation? You're on mute.
Sandeep, you're on mute.
Yeah, I have been unmuted. I fully concur with what Captain Tiwari is saying. I think if this exporter has the confidence and he is not at fault, he should not be liable for something that he is not responsible for. And it's good that Captain Tiwari has cleared the air on this, and I myself fully concur and I also support this. See, we have to promote Indian exports and imports, and we have to have this ease of doing business, and more importantly, we have to be cost efficient if we have to really compete. Our products have to be of good quality, and we should be reliable as a supplier. And all these things, I think it's good to hear, and Captain Tiwari and many other shipping lines have also confirmed to me that things are running and coming back to normal very quickly. And the ports are there, are capable of serving it. This period when, especially during April, we did find that, multiple handlings had to happen because exports kept coming in, vessels were not there, but that has been dealt with. And that has been dealt with honorably between the shipping lines and the exporters. So I think equipment shortage still continues, and, if there is much better data available, it is much easier for the shipping. I have one point, and Ramprasad, you should help us with this. India has enough data on everything. The transportation, how it's happening, the goods, how they are moving, where they're moving to. And if this data is made intelligently available, people can triangulate, people can optimize, this is held by government in different places, this is held by shipping lines in different places, this is held by ports in different places, this is held by railways in different places, and eventually who's suffering? All of us. Because once you don't have transparency and visibility, you can't optimize. There is enough technology available to create good solutions, and I think there are a lot of startups that are happening in this sector, and that is where I see the way it will go. The container supply, that can still be managed. If we get data available, people are forecasting accurately, people are standing by their commitment. Now, if somebody doesn't have any penalty, he can book as many containers, not bring them. I think people have started now disciplining them to say, okay, if you're making a booking, please do come because I have block space for you. It's just like the airline industry. Till now, there was no discipline. I think COVID has taught that this discipline is necessary for everybody to survive. And even for ports to manage their yards. If a ship does not call and another ship is calling, you can't produce another yard. So the physicality, the thing is that if you have visibility, you can plan.
Right.
Good, thanks.
I agree on that point, Captain Sandeep, because we have been collecting the container throughput data for the last few years, and the trade has been very cooperative in sharing the data. We tried this with the Ministry of Commerce also, where all the ports exports import data is stored in huge data, but unlocking has become a big issue still, because the pricing that they have put is if you want to take out the data runs into multiple crores, one record per 1 rupee.
No, that
Imagine
is
the kind of millions of tons of cargo that is moving. So what we suggested to them is we can analyze the data, and then ultimately in a model where even the government also can monetize on that.
See, the problem is everybody wants to monetize it. Ram Prasad, the problem is that nobody is looking at the larger issue. No, we are not. No, let me just take 1 minute only on this. We are looking at the general good. And if we make it, the data is available. Nobody has to physically do anything with one or the other piece of line item. It has to be anonymously analyzed. And data analytics tools are there.
Right, sir.
They should not be asking for 1 rupee, 2 rupees. This is where the problem starts. I think China doesn't do this. And that's why they are where they are. You need basic visibility.
Yes, I think all the associations also should come together, and then we should put some pressure on government to share the data, as you rightly mentioned, anonymous data without revealing the customers and shippers' names. So we can still analyze that data. Anyway, we can discuss this on the sidelines. We have 15, 16 questions unanswered, so I need to quickly move on, Jishan. Before coming to Jishan, sir, quickly, Kalyan Ram Garu, can you answer one question? Wherein is it viable to make containers in India under Atmanirbhar program? Because we are talking about container shortage. Do you think it's a viable proposal?
Container manufacturing in India?
Yes.
In fact, we are looking for that. If somebody can come with a solution, a cost-effective solution. See, being an Atmanirbhar Bharat, we can't have costly containers that will increase the logistics cost. It's all the discussion is that how we can reduce the logistics cost to make our exports competitive in the world. So the container, the last container what we imported from China, it costed us roughly $3,100. In Indian rupees, it is around that time, it was around 2.16 lakhs or 2.2 lakhs. If somebody can offer that, excluding GST to me, I'm ready to buy containers. In fact, we are maybe we will soon come out with sort of our requirement. We almost prepared the document, but because of the COVID situation, again, we held back that. We have not released that document. Otherwise, we would have released that. And once these things start improving, we'll release the document. What the requirement we are looking at a huge requirement, because we are working on movement of commodity in bulk in domestic market. That will be huge. And also we are promoting container as a warehouse for short-term storage to avoid double handling of the cargo. These two things we are already started promoting. So that will increase the requirement of containers. And it's welcome if the entrepreneurs are ready to start manufacturing containers in India. Because as on date, the manufacturing capability in India is very low for containers. I think all manufacturing units, everything put together in total, I don't know, I may be wrong, but they can't produce more than maybe 5,000-6,000 containers in India in a year as on date. That's what my impression is. Maybe I may be totally wrong. Let me go.
Kalyana Rama sir, my personal view is container manufacturing is not rocket science. It is hugely subsidized by the Chinese government. Many of them, that's why we make that as a reference price. And that's why we get addicted to it. And that becomes a reference point. So everybody, they become the manufacturing center for the world. Because nobody else then wants to build at that price. So everybody loses the opportunity and more importantly, loses the expertise and loses the interest because it's like an addiction. You get something cheap, you get it consistently, and then you don't need to do it and you lose the prowess to do it in your own country. So if we are looking at that number, their factories have had some serious challenges because they are getting free electricity, subsidized steel, labor comes in at a price which you could not get in anywhere else in the world. And that's why they were making it at that price and supplying it to everybody. And everybody else has closed their container manufacturing all over the world except for China. So now, if you really want to be Atmanirbhar Bharat, I'm not saying that everybody has to buy Indian, but definitely we have to see that whatever we need to do to basically improve the economy and to see to get the jobs for the people.
Captain Mehta, I fully agree with you. See, we are all proud Indians. Let us be proud Indians. But at the same time, as you said, this is not a rocket science.
Correct.
So when it is not a rocket science, when China can produce at that cost and can export all over the world, why not India? So you see now one manufacturer, I will not quote, we had a very discussion with them. So that CMD was talking to me. He said, it's impossible. I said, what is that becoming it impossible? He said, input cost is high. So why can't we look at the input cost?
Correct.
Why we are taking that now for setting up a manufacturing unit where I will just bring corrugated this steel, which is special
Cotton steel.
So that I will do just I have to do a TIG welding, continuous TIG welding, and then put some sort of riveting here and there, and yes, a container can be built. Now the whole manufacturing process, I can't save money. My input costs are high. So can I reduce my input cost? So it's an exercise.
So the government has to work actively if we really want to be Atmanirbhar, to see that those areas where we are importing those things which can be made in India, and they can see that those things are being dumped or they are being really value added for.
No, this is a whole exercise to be done. See, now it's not that, Concor or, Tiwari, our Captain Tiwari sitting there as a liner, he wants to buy. You can't buy at a higher price. So there is everywhere the commercial view has to be taken. So now a whole process has to be looked into where we can reduce. Right. Why the input cost is high? We got ore, we are manufacturing steel, we export ore. We got sufficient resources with us. Can we reduce from that stage onwards how we can reduce the cost and can manufacture a container cheaper than China so we can become a net exporter of container to the world?
If we are export dominant, Ram Prasad, if we are export dominant, we will save that $800 of, the cost of repositioning an empty box. That way we will be helpful to look at it. I think we all have to really work hard.
Right. That will happen, sir. That will happen.
Exercise on this.
With all the good things that are happening now, I think, that will happen. And there is also a cue to Kalyan Ramaji, sir. You should put some pressure on government to get the subsidy. Maybe other associations also raise it if really we want this to take.
Anyway. I don't want to call it subsidy. It should be an exercise.
No subsidy.
Everywhere the cost has to be brought down so that the final product is export competitive to the world, not only for Atmanirbhar Bharat.
We move on to the next question, which is from Umesh Grover. China has been a major contributor to India's imports. Now with Indo-China border issue and negative sentiments against China, do you think imports to India from other South Asian countries will increase in the next few months? This is any of you can answer, starting with Jishan. Jishan has been, I couldn't reach out to him in between, so we'll start with Jishan.
Thanks so much for the question, and it's a very good question. In fact, we have seen the impact of India-China relationships, making quite a few of our Indian importers quite nervous. Especially when it was at the peak of the relationships being on the edge a month back or so. We really saw a lot of anxiety in a lot of importers. However, since then, I think we've seen both the relationships move a little bit towards normalization, and we've also seen a lot more imports. The importer sentiment, so to say, normalizing. Volumes from China at the moment, we are China, like India, is actually also facing a significant shortage of equipment, and that is similar trends seen over there as well. So there has been, of course, the volumes are low, but it's also similar challenges where there's been an unprecedented rush in China for demand across the different trades. So there have been a little bit subdued from import into India, but it has recovered from where it was a couple of months back.
May I step in here,
Please.
Mr. Ramprasad, for a minute?
Please, sir, please.
I would like to, I agree with what Zishan is saying. I would like to inform everybody that because of the quarantine regulations that the government of India has announced, and this has been going on right from the beginning since March, ships that are coming in from China, if they require 14 days of quarantine period before they can touch an Indian port. Most of the ships can touch the first Indian port on the 9th, max 10th day. What are you going to do with the ship on for 4 days? This is one of the biggest challenges that shipping lines are facing today on the China trade.
Thank you, sir.
Especially on the East Coast. Yeah, so Ramprasad, I think the question is very apt. Definitely, there is been such a, alternate for providing services and for providing goods is coming from Southeast Asia, other countries. But this is not going to happen overnight. And this is also going to change the way the shipping is happening in this whole area. It's been, Bay of Bengal has been an extension of the intra-Asia. So now I think it will have to evolve itself as its own independent trade lane. West Coast is very mature. It has been always working with, the Western world. I think also railways will come in, intermodalism will happen, and therefore you will find that we will be trading more with neighboring countries than ever before. So yeah.
Thank you, Captain. Now I would like to move on to one question, which is actually a burning topic on the freight rates to Captain Deepak Tiwari. Sir, we have seen the freight rates going up phenomenally, which we haven't heard of from 2011 or 2015. Shipping lines were sulking about the freight rates being low for long. And during this period, as Kalyanarama sir mentioned, you are the one who is laughing all the way to the bank. Of course, in business, I cannot comment on the profitability part of it. But what I would like to understand from you is, what is the rationale suddenly the freight rates going up to that level? And now exporters through FIO started crying about the cost is going up by 20-40%. So what? I would like you to explain the scenario, why the freight rates are so high, and what would be the scenario going forward?
Freight rates are based on market forces, absolutely. So if the demand is there, the rates will go up. If capacity is there, that higher capacity, since there is a situation where the demand is and capacity is practically balanced, and there is a demand for export, the rates as far as export rates are concerned have gone up slightly. I wouldn't say they're laughing to the bank. I don't know which bank Mr. Kalyanarama is talking about, but yes, freight rates have gone up. There's no doubt about it. And these freight rates will have to will be adjusted as more competition comes in, as capacity and demand can come close to each other. These freight rates are not permanently they're not permanently going to be high. So because what we've seen basically is that freight rates will go up when the demand is high, freight rates come down when the demand is low. And so much so that even when there's a seasonal demand goes low, freight rates will start coming down again. Today, the shipping lines are spending money on importing empty equipment into India and positioning empty equipment. And that is also one of the reasons why freight rates have gone up. But this is not a permanent affair. Because it is market forces, there is open competition. And I don't think that these freight rates will continue to be high on and on year from now onwards, unless the situation of supply and demand continues as it is here in India. I hope I've been able to answer the question. I'm trying to be quite simplistic here.
Yeah. Any comments?
Yeah, Ram Prasad, I would just like to say we should not grudge the earnings which are momentary for shipping lines. They have actually suffered for quite some time. You saw the amount of consolidation that has happened, bankruptcies that took place, the kind of investment that is required in assets, and these are all long term. This is a real free market, and if the freight rates go horribly up, a lot of people will get into shipping. Again, it happens all the time. It's a cycle, and this cycle is repeated at least in my last 40 years 4 times. So it's going to repeat again. These are not, I'm saying, sustainable or not sustainable, but these are opportunities that have arisen, and I don't grudge them. They will have to bring normalcy, because otherwise the cargo's flows will change. So, but we need consistency. I think most important is we need consistency, and for an Indian exporter to be able to plan his future. Reliability right now is more important than a few $100s in freight. Mm-hmm. Because already on the inland side, it's a horribly expensive affair. The less said, the better. Mm-hmm. So, grudge them on making a few dollars, I don't think so. Our inlands also have to improve. That's where the money is actually, majority of it is getting spent. So I think there is some introspection there as well. We have to make it more efficient to become really a competitor. Otherwise, we only talk as Indians, not do much, and then the story will, something else will come up.
Kalyan Ramaji, anything about that inland infrastructure and haulage charges, things need to be improved?
No, I can add only one thing. See, this inland, the cost of inland transportation, yes, it's based on many things, and of course there are different viewpoints on this, different analysis done on this, whether it is really costly or we are comparable with the cost of transportation in the developed countries in China. So there are some things which, of course, beyond the discussion of this conference, I can discuss that separately. So we are not that very expensive. But the question is, the one good thing is that, even in the COVID situation, we never increase the rates, whether there's demand or no demand. The rates are maintained in the hinterland. That's that is a helping hand given to the exporters. In fact, we announced more of VDS schemes. And we also, given, as I said, when there is a free haulage is available, we have in fact absorbed costs. Even though, you see, the rail haulage which we pay to the Indian Railways is only 70% of the total cost we incur, because there is other cost to us, around 30% to 40%, depending on various factors in various routes, which we have to bear. We absorbed that and we made it free. So that's so we have not made it a demand-supply game, rather than we maintained that the consistency and the stability in the pricing, which we announced last year as Concur as an organization, and we are continuing this year also. During COVID time, we are not trying to make it a demand-supply game. So that's a good thing about the hinterland transport in India, where Concur is leading the scenario on the rail transport side.
Thank you, sir. Let me deviate a bit further from the container handling and movement. This pandemic, coronavirus pandemic, during this period have you seen any change in customer approach or demands, and what is your experience? All the panelists can talk about this. What is the significant change that we are seeing from the marketplace, your customer?
I think if I can start, there have been significant changes both, and you can categorize this both in terms of buying patterns, from exporters or our partners, and you can also sort of categorize it in terms of demand and how things are moving. And I think Captain Tiwari also introduced a bit of that when in his introduction speech. When it comes to the behavioral changes, then across both B2C and B2B, we have seen digital adoption becoming more and more the norm. And previously people who were actually afraid of using these digital tools or adopting online ways of working, we have seen a significant shift there, as much as a lot of large part of organizations, many organizations is still today operating from home, and that continues. So and it's been 5-6 months, so that's a significant change. So we've seen more digital adoption. We've also seen a lot of change from all our partners and from vendors, also customs, like was mentioned from Concor. Everyone coming forth in the ecosystem to connect digitally and to really advance that agenda where you can provide seamless services across the board, pass information and data electronically. So that has been a significant trend. One example, for us as Maersk, is we've seen record downloads of our mobile app. We've also seen a large part of our business now, which has moved on to Maersk Spot, which is our digital booking platform. So these are some of the changes that we've definitely seen in behavior, which has been accelerated by the pandemic. On the behavioral side, I think there has been definite, there have been a lot of companies, which have actually benefited significantly from this pandemic, and there have definitely been a lot more losers as well. When we look at our customer portfolio, our customers that have online sales models or a combination of hybrid sales models, where they have store deliveries, store pickups, as well as online deliveries. Some of these more evolved supply chain companies, we have definitely seen them coming out and bringing this pandemic to their advantage, and we've seen that in many parts of the world, these companies outshining and doing well. It's also evident in their results, as we've seen in published, and we've seen significant demand increase from these customers for shipping supplies as well. On the other hand, more traditional businesses also, which were also segments which are slightly more on the higher end of the disposable income spend, which come in over there at more expensive goods. We've seen a slightly lower demand over there. So these are some of the changes and that have happened. Some might be temporary. Some, like the change in the buying model of moving to digital, also the adoption. I think these are more permanent. I think Ram Prasad, you're on mute.
Captain Deepak Tiwari.
Yes, one of the biggest things that, as Ishan mentioned very clearly, is digitalization. I mentioned that as well. Being specific about it, we as shipping lines and service providers provided the electronic modes of payment and delivery orders, etc., quite some time back. But one of the big things that we have found is that the customers today, the exporters, have started now biting on the services of electronic bills of lading from India. And that is very encouraging. that is extremely encouraging, because this, once the electronic bills of lading catches on, this is through a blockchain system, very secure. So once that catches on, the entire movement of the document through the commercial chain, the banks, etc., from the shipper to the consignee shipping line, goes electronically. What normally takes about 10 days can actually be done in less than an hour. I mean, I'm talking about the whole chain. I mean, right from shipper to receiving the document with the consignee, after giving the document through the shipping line and collecting his delivery order for the cargo is less than 1 hour. So we have found that more and more people are coming forward to take on the offering of certain shipping lines for the product of electronic bills of lading. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Captain Sandeep?
Yeah, I think I second what has been said by Zishan and Captain Tiwari. There has been a lot of move towards automation in the ports, and that is continuing to grow. It has hugely benefited us because we were able to work very safely. Digitization, I think, is an implementation of new technology. What Captain Tiwari mentioned about blockchain and what we are doing with with TradeLens. So we have been the first ones to implement all these things, and we actually work paperless and contactless during the the extreme COVID period. And it was due to active collaboration between the whole shipping community. It all came together. And digitalization is, I think, is the way it has been adopted and has been compelled to adopt by people. So I think this is one of the things that has happened, and it will continue to accelerate. So we should all be prepared. The companies which are able to manage this well will succeed, which will adopt blockchain, they will be the preferred companies that others will deal with. I think not to mention here, but generally, people have become more aware about environment, climate change, want to use the more environmentally safer way of transportation. That's where I have this whole issue of scheduled train coming to operate would be it's long overdue. And India was a leader in rail transportation, and I think that intermodal connectivity, rail to sea, I think with minimal cost and minimal intervention of customs and all that, I think will also promote coastal trade, which has been lacking on such a huge coastline of ours. I think those are the issues we need to really work upon. And nearshoring and alternates to where the traditional buying was happening, that will change the way the way people are making their supply chains more robust. So multiple supply chains will be required to bring reliability, and it will all be near. So you will have to have very good quality of logistics, suppliers, warehousing. This is the trend you will see more and more now, and good for India, because a lot of entrepreneurs can come in and create value in it, because it's all technology driven.
Thank you, Captain.
Thank you.
Mr. Kalyan Ramaji, I have one specific question to you and Jishan. We have seen an excellent logistic solution worked out by Maersk and Concor for Nepal-bound containers. Why we can't think of something similar for the coastal shipping and inland waterways also? This is from Captain Amarendra Mishra. I mean, any solution which can promote coastal shipping and moving containers through other modes?
Yeah, in fact, see, we started coastal shipping last year, and we could run the service without a break for almost more than a year. And because of COVID, we suspended the operations. So, as any business in the first year, we lost money in that, but yeah, we wanted to build a brand and we want to build a service there. I do not know what is the similarity between the Nepal service and the coastal,
Yeah.
because as Jishan,
Maybe the relationship with the line to provide a seamless service. I understand it that way.
yeah, of course, that we offered. Of course, Musk has had to take the bite. See, I discussed with Steve also many times. Why can't you give the instead of doing double dip, Steve at the Vallar Padam, we can bring them to Bombay, and give at Bombay, we can take to Vallar Padam. Of course, that the Musk has to work out. Yeah, that that Costa, because now the I think cabotage laws have been relaxed in India, so this can be done. So maybe post COVID again we will start working out. I had some discussions with other shipping lines. So there were some shipping lines showing interest in this particular, to avoid double dips and to use the coastal for the local cabotage and the movements, and also the transshipment movements between various ports between West Coast and East Coast.
Okay.
I think it will happen.
Sir, this question is to both Captain Deepak Tiwari as well as Sandeep. How will the container throughput growth rates will be different from transshipment dependent ports versus other mainline dependent ports? Do we see any change?
I did not understand the question.
How will the container throughput growth rates will be different for transshipment dependent ports vis-a-vis other mainline dependent ports?
You want to answer that, Sandeep?
Yeah, I can. See, on the Indian coast, we are import-export oriented ports. And actually transshipment has been a story that was, started long time ago. And that story is no longer relevant, in my opinion, because, we wanted to have mega hubs and all that. Now, mega hubs is a cost center for a shipping line. It's more of a network issue for them. And that can move as quickly as anything else. If the network changes, this demand changes, the whole transshipment business can change. It has to be good geographically located. It has to have all the other facilities. But please, let's not become, everybody, I think, gets super excited in government, super excited. Everybody wants to be a transshipment port. What is it you're actually wanting to be? You do double the work for half the money. So what's in it for you? I think people have to get sensible, because building mega ports now is the latest craze that is happening. So building mega ports means you need a huge amount of infrastructure to do import-export business. That's what we are into. Transshipment is just a network cost, and eventually my other friends will say about it, but it's a cost to them, so they will do it wherever they want. So if you want to build a business model around transshipment business, please be very aware. So that's how I see it. Networks are well established. I think that's what I have to say. I think the shipping lines would have more to say about it, because they are the ones who do the transshipment. We just provide services. Captain Sahab or Zishan,
okay.
Yeah, I think that's how I read it.
Since Sandeep started the thing, I purposely threw the first ball at him. Basically, you see, what makes a transshipment port? It's the port itself, which offers the services, and then contracts with the shipping line to say that, okay, this is what I can do. This is my productivity. How do we work together? And sign the contracts whereby I will give you all the facilities. I promise you all the facilities. I give you the productivity. I give you productivity norms. We create KPIs, etc. And the shipping line then turns around and says that, okay, this is the volume, fixed volume that I can give you for transshipment. These are the number of mainline calls. These are the number of approximate feeder calls that will be attracted to your port. So you work your business model around that. And the basics, of course, are draft, berth capacity, crane outreach, enough space on the quay to or near quay to hold containers for a period of at least 21 months, that is 3 sailings, 21 days, sorry. That is 3 sailings of mother vessels or 4 sailings of mother vessels. I mean, these are the basics. So it's a question of the port and the shipping lines talking to each other and say that, okay, can we come into a business? This is what I can offer you for transshipment at my port. This is the geographical location, and this is how it can help you to aggregate cargo for this particular region. Now, Sandeep Mehta did not say that we as MSC are actually doing a lot of transshipment at his port. Thanks to the cabotage relaxation, we're doing a lot of transshipment to the port, at the port, which attracts the mainline vessels as well as the feeder vessels onto the port berths. So it's a business model that the ports have to decide that, okay, I want to be in the transshipment model. For instance, JNPT, that is the Jawaharlal Nehru Port, the terminals are not interested. Why? Because they've got enough export and import cargo to handle. They're not interested in transshipment. So the entire transshipment model is different. And as what Sandeep mentioned, it is double the work. That means loading and discharging of the same container, right? And storage as well, which you don't have to do for an import box or an export box. So it's the business model of the port at the end of the day.
I think, Captain Saab, I'd like to add here is one thing very pertinent is that we do actually a lot of relay business. It comes from one ship and goes on to another, and it's really what we're doing is relay and not doing a hub and spoke here that one ship which came, it just turned around here and went. It's on its way. It integrates at this port because it is offering great services, like they do about 700,000 last year, maybe 1 million this year. So they do it primarily for their network benefit. Now, if it is geographically very central, because you've got so many services coming there, you can redisperse, reallocate. And depending upon, your allocations, depending upon the ship's capacity and what you can do a lot of interesting things at the port. But I am only cautioning people who want to build this as a big business model. Unless you're building it in close consonance with one of the big, groups or alliances or shipping, it is fraught with risk. And multiple ports have also come up in the Middle East, which already have got the capacity to handle big ships. So earlier it was just for big ships. I think Bay of Bengal is the new story. So Bay of Bengal is very, very interesting.
Yeah, Sandeep, I was just about to mention that where you already have direct services which are turning around from the port, there's no point in creating a transshipment hub there.
Exactly.
It's like, it's no point doing that. But what is going to be interesting and what is an area which can be looked at is the east coast of India. Because the east coast of India, not only can look at aggregating cargo as far as India is concerned, it can look at multiple countries aggregating cargo there. And that is what can actually make that business worthwhile.
Sustainable.
Sustainable, yeah.
Gentlemen, let us end this panel discussion with one last question. This is from Arun Adak from Alcargo. It is to all panelists. Come up with your own perspectives. So this pandemic has seen changes in consumption pattern. According to you, how long this trend will continue? Anybody can start off.
Well, okay, if I can start. I think some changes, like I mentioned, will be more long term, and some will be more short term, so to say. And we recently actually had the pleasure of inviting some attending a few of these sessions with noted economists, and I can sort of quote from there. So the demand change where consumers, for example, Indian consumers or consumers elsewhere, are refraining from buying, I would say, the expensive goods, or where a large part of money is to be spent. I think that there is definitely a phenomenon of consumer spend going down, especially on the high luxury items, barring auto, which is slightly a different story, mainly because of the changes that are there in the dynamics of ride sharing, etc. There is a certain reluctance over there, and we can see it very clearly in the Diwali season this year. We expect this is short term, and this should reverse somewhere once the pandemic sort of once we have a vaccine, once we have some of the confidence is already coming back. You can see more and more opening up, and we can see that this will sort of trend will change and will come back to normal. We will again start to see the buying, the consumption back in India, hopefully fairly soon, maybe Q1, Q2, but definitely this is short term. Some changes, in terms of buying patterns, in terms of will be more long term. For example, ways of working. So certain sectors, ways of working have changed. Work from home has become more common, and this, of course, changes impacts again, like Mr. Kalyanaraman mentioned about people wanting to be more healthy, more conscious. These are changes that are more long lasting, and these are behavioral changes that have actually come in, and that will impact those products that are in those categories for much longer, and there we will see a shift in exact demand in those categories. However, like Captain Deepak Tiwari also mentioned, that from an EXIM perspective, we do not have any more blank sailings, and that's absolutely true. For almost all shipping lines, right? We are back to the normal schedules. Yes, we have some challenges on the empty equipment, like everyone mentioned, and these are temporary adjustments, mainly because of the change in flows, and we need and supply chains of shipping lines, so to say, need time to cope with it and to come back to normal. And largely, I think. Most shipping lines are trying to cope with it. It is expensive, but a lot of us are putting in efforts to make sure that there is enough and ample capacity, both in terms of equipment and in terms of space available for Indian exporters and importers.
Thank you, Jishan. Kalyanaraman Garu.
Ramprasad, what I see with the COVID coming is more of the online sales and online digitization. Consumers also trying to pick up more online. So that actually is giving more opportunity for 3PL to develop in a big way in India. So it's now happening, we got like Amazon, Flipkart, now Jio is very big entering into it. So all these, they require back-end support of logistics, which is not yet developed in India. So that is the space where a long-term change is going to happen. And it is for good. It gives jobs to many people and a very big opportunity for the logistic companies. As Comcar, we are also looking at a great opportunity in this. We are building up for that. In fact, I think I discussed with you earlier, which you covered in your magazine, the distribution logistics centers. So we added some ideas to it now, as I mentioned in my opening remarks, that we are now trying to promote container as a warehouse for short-term storage, so that the goods can be distributed directly from there. So these are the long-term changes which we are going to set in, and they will not change. So this behavioral change in the consumerism and the buying patterns is going to last. So that's where the interest is. We can see a lot of FDI flowing into India, into those sectors, because these are the sectors which are having future.
Captain, both the captains, anybody can conclude on this?
Okay. From my side, I think what I see is that people will require, more storage. So they will require, and e-commerce will be quite a, I think, important part of everybody's business model. So therefore, I think the supply chain professionals who are there and who are there looking for opportunities, I think, or for entrepreneurs, there's a huge space in professional logistics, 3PL logistics, providing digital solutions. So this is the way things will go. Definitely, public transportation is becoming riskier until the pandemic is fully resolved. So people will have independent private methods of transport. People will be much healthier. So health-related businesses will do much better. India definitely wants to be the China +1 sort of a producer of goods, and it has the capability. The government is quite focused on it. And I think in the next 3 to 5 years, you will find everybody will have more near-shoring, more businesses that they will do with proximity countries because of the way they want to build the relationships also, and also want to have opportunities for each other. I think this is where India will go. And you will find also a lot of focus coming on coastal shipping and definitely rail to become much more, prevalent and efficient, because road is quite environmentally the last option that should be there. Of course, cost being aside. Captain Tiwari?
Yeah, my take on this is it's obvious. E-commerce is here to stay. It's here to expand and here to bloom. 3PL, as Mr. Kalyanaraman said, that opportunities of 3PL. I mentioned in my opening remarks that the opportunity of warehousing space, because within the e-commerce, what we have noticed is that it's the last mile that is the weakest link. And that is the one that generates employment. That is the one that can actually be more digitalized than what it is today, so that one can track and trace your goods much more easily. And warehousing is here to stay. I mean, it's going to be a big demand in the future. Buying patterns of human beings, let me tell you, I do not have a crystal ball. But one thing I can say is that the moment the vaccine comes and the vaccine is available to everybody, it's going to be business as usual. So the high end and the low end commodities will continue to boom. The high end will actually then take precedence, and in the sense that it's been subdued now, it'll go forward. The hospitality industry, which has been in a complete doldrum for this period, will then again start blooming. A lot of the people who are in the hospitality industry will change the way that they do business. They will change the way that they project their business models, both in the hotel industry as well as in the restaurant and the wines dispensing industry as well. So this broadly is how we see it. Another thing that is not going to change is the electronic communication, the media, the Netflix. I mean, I'm just using a brand called Netflix, but equivalent of Netflix, the Indian equivalent of Netflix. These are things that we will see in the future. Media, we will see a big change in the media in the coming years. It'll become more responsible. There'll be more content driven. And we hope that there will be that big change as far as the media is concerned. So with that, I'd like to close my comments on this last question. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. That has been a very wonderful. Kalyan Mamaji wants to conclude. Have the last word.
No. See, one thing which is going to be a permanent thing, and of course, which is very convenient to everyone, which we realized with the COVID, is these webinars. I think now the physical conference era has gone. And I think everybody will like to have webinar because it's the most convenient. You can do your work, you can attend a conference, you can continue, you can do your business. So I think this is one thing which is going to be long lasting, and you are doing good service to it, and all the best to you to attend more webinars.
Thank you very much, sir. We had a wonderful discussion covering a wide spectrum of issues concerning our container trade. I do not dare to summarize what we have discussed, but a lot of insights have come into the current scenario and what would be the future scenario. But what I can say, initially when we were under lockdown, after lockdown, during April, I think April 22nd, I had my first webinar with most of you. Then we were battling with so many operational issues, and we had no clue about what hit us and how to handle this scenario and all that. Now, I see a lot of positive. In a matter of 6 months' time, we understood the impact and understood how to deal with it. And a lot of innovation has come up. It has shaken us. It opened up us to look at doing things differently. A lot of innovation has come up. Our focus also become more customer centric, and more solution oriented. So there is a lot of positivity, and apart from whatever the loss of lives that is happening around us, but in business, I think. And as Captain Tiwari said, when the vaccine comes, it will be business as usual. Everybody, we will adopt all these new learnings and also deal with the business much more vigorously. On that note, thank you very much for your valuable time joining this session, because this is one event very close to us, Containers India, once in a year. Though we do another short webinars, but Container India has that flavor. And with all your support, we would like to continue that platform. Thank you very much, gentlemen. On that note, I suspend this session for about an hour, and look forward to see you again. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.